welcome back to my channel. I'm going to do another story time. Today I'm going to talk about marriage, only because so many people have asked me and I thought, oh, maybe I covered that in relationships, but then I thought maybe I'll do a specific one on marriage. Well, more than experiences, I think I wanted to kind of share what I think or I believe equals a healthy marriage. I'm also going to be sharing things that I've discussed with brides-to-be or some of my friends and what we all think a healthy marriage should be. So maybe, I don't know, maybe it might inspire somebody. Maybe some of you who have been married for a really long time might help, or for anyone that's about to start the journey of marriage, or maybe even understanding what went wrong in your marriage. I don't know. So I'm just hoping that today's video will be a little bit helpful. So I'm going to do a really soft glam. A lot of you have been asking me this because I've been doing this same look for most of my bridal work when I go there, because it's just so quick and it still looks so put together. So I'm going to start with doing that whole laminated fluffy brow thing. So I'm using the Refi. One of my cousins told me about this brow sculpt in clear. So you need to really get like a disgusting amount on there and make it look really white and whatnot. And you have to do this step. If you want to have that laminated eyebrow look, you have to do this before you even do the rest of your makeup. So this is your first step before you even attempt concealer or foundation or whatever. Right, so just as an FYI, if some of you are like, oh, what do you know about marriage, right? Like, first of all, I was married before, didn't work out. But I'm not going to even use my previous marriage at all as an example, because I was only married 4 months and I don't think it really counted. And you know, yeah, so it's not really a great example. But I married again. You know, you can watch my divorce story time as well, just to understand that a little bit more. I've been married now for 7.5 years. In April next year it'll be 8 years. So it's crazy because, like, my husband and I, we really don't feel like we've been married for such a long time. Like, it feels crazy to us that we have been married for so long. But yeah, let's just say one of the best things that happened, which wasn't planned, is that we moved to another country. My husband wasn't living in Malaysia. I wasn't living in Malaysia. I was in the UK. My husband was in the States. But due to a lot of, you know, reasons, which again are in my other story times, we've decided to give Malaysia a go. And we thought, you know what? It was initially meant to be just a temporary thing, maybe for a year or something like that. But we loved it so much, we ended up staying. Can you see what I've done? Like, look how cool this looks. Okay, I'm just gonna let that sort of dry before I go over with a little bit of pencil to fill it in. But this is literally what I did. You can sometimes leave it on for longer. This works on anybody. This is like magic. It's great. But again, you have to do it before you start makeup. Right. So like I said, one of the things is because we lived away, we had no family around us. My mother-in-law lived about 2.5 hours away from us. My husband doesn't come from a big family. So it literally was just my husband and I for 4 years, just the two of us in our own little bubble. And that, you know, was literally the biggest blessing for our marriage, because we were able to make decisions, just the two of us. And I know if anyone non-Asian or non-Tamil is watching this video probably thinks, but isn't that what couples do? Like, you make decisions together. Well, in our culture, as most of us know, it's not like that. We basically marry into a family. We don't just marry the one person, we marry everyone else. And everyone gets involved in decisions and all of those things. And it's okay. Sometimes you want the elders, you know, to help you or give you advice, because, you know, it's such a nice thing. They're just like sharing their experiences and things that they think it's right and things, you know, they think are wrong, right? And I remember, I'm not trying to throw my mom under the bus here, but I remember one of the things my mom said right at the beginning of the marriage. She was like, don't tell your husband everything. You don't have to tell your husband everything. There are some things that are unnecessary because it's just going to cause issues, so you don't, you know, i.e. my past, because my parents know my entire past. They know all the guys I've dated and whatever, which is very unconventional because I did come from a very orthodox family. Initially, my parents are a lot more chilled out now, but I think I was such a rebel. I've never lied to anybody. Like, everyone's always known my situation, and I think my mom was just like, oh, no, 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 you know, you shouldn't be telling your future husband some of the things. Personally, I feel like, you know what? It's such a gray area because it depends on the person, okay? If you've married somebody who is super chill and super open-minded and super, you know, kind of like comfortable, secure, confident in his own skin, I feel like those kind of people don't really care. They don't really care about anything else, and they don't stress about it, or they don't think too much about it. And because I knew my husband was, I was able to comfortably tell him about my past, and vice versa. He was able to tell me about my past. In hindsight, it didn't make a difference in our marriage. Like, even if we didn't tell each other these things, we would have been in the same, you know, our marriage would have been the same, I think. But I just kind of wanted to start with, you know, him just knowing everything about me, and I wanted to be accepted, and I wanted it to be like, you know, like, by the way, knowing that he was never going to use it against me. Like, I knew that he's not the type of person to get into an argument with me and then say, oh yeah, you're like this anyway, to hurt me. And if you think you're with somebody that does that, I mean, that's technically a red flag. But if you think, okay, it's just because of whatever reasons and he's a little bit sensitive or whatever, you know, I'm sorry, I'm talking from a female perspective, you know, but it's just easier for me to explain it that way. But obviously, if it's the other way around as well, if you're a guy watching this and you're thinking about your girlfriend, yeah, it can be the other way around as well, right? By the way, I've used concealer, and now I'm setting it with a little bit of just translucent powder, because I'm not going to do liquid foundation. I'm going to do a powder foundation. So that's why I'm making sure there's nothing creamy on my face, because then it will look really patchy and weird. Okay, yeah, so that was really important to me. So I had that out of the way. My husband and I, we basically shared our past, and it was kind of just like done. We've never spoken about it again, and nobody really cared. I don't think about it, I don't care about his past, and vice versa. And I know that because in the 7 years, we've never used it against each other. We've never said, oh yeah, but you've been with this many people, or anything like that. So I think, again, that comes down to the person and personality. If you think you can be completely open, I do believe if both of you can do that, that sets such a healthy kind of environment where you can be so honest with each other, so that there is no room for doubt, or there is no room for like trust issues, right? Like, you know, and I think that was really important to me, that I'm just like, you know what, I'm laying it all bare, take it or leave it kind of thing. And that really helped me, and that I think helped him as well. We were both really comfortable with each other. The other thing was communication, just being able to talk to each other about anything and everything, you know. I say that, but at the same time, it's really important that you know when to say everything and anything, and when to communicate, okay? So I'm using the Studio Fix Powder Foundation with a nice, big, fluffy brush, and I'm just going to now cover the rest of the face that doesn't have any concealer. Like, now I feel like it blends very well with everything else, because I've already set that with powder as well. Now I can even go over my concealer area, and it's completely fine. I know I used a lot of concealer. You don't have to, you can use less. Yeah, so communication. Like, my husband and I, we talk about anything and everything. And if I do feel like he's being a little bit different, or he feels like I'm being a little bit quiet, we don't annoy each other by saying, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong? Like, we literally give each other that space because we know something's up. And then once we've given that person a little bit of space, we're just like, okay, I can tell that you're like, you know, you seem a bit off. Is everything okay? Like, you can talk to me. And just kind of inviting that person to come and talk to you, rather than almost harassing them. Like, it's not fun to do that. Sometimes when you're in a bad mood because you've had a bad day, I don't know, maybe you got into an argument with your parents and you come home and you're like, ugh! And then imagine your husband's just like, wow, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? And then you're like, oh my God, I don't want to talk about it to anyone, because I think it's so important to process your own feelings, to process a situation, and just, you know, and I think my husband and I got into this habit of always saying to each other, do you know what, just give me a moment, like just give me some space, like just let me just, you know, I'll talk to you in a bit. And at the beginning of our marriage, that was challenging. Whenever we said that to each other, we almost felt a little bit like, oh, what, I'm not important for you to talk to? Or why is it that, you know, everyone else seems to know about this but not me? Or, you know, and now it's kind of like, just give me some time, just give me some space, I'll tell you. And we both do that with each other. Or sometimes, I mean, especially now, I don't even ask him at all. I know he's gonna tell me, I just give him that time. And sometimes later on when we're in bed, like, you know, he'll be on the phone, but then he'll just be quiet, and then he'll be like, you know, today this and this and this happened. So I know sometimes it takes him like a whole day for him to kind of just like feel really comfortable to talk about what happened, you know, and then I'm in that perfect space as well to just listen and to then be like, okay, don't you think we should do this? Or what do you want to do about it? And what do you think the solution's going to be? I'm a problem solver, always have been. When somebody tells me something, yes, I can listen, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, what do we do next? How do we avoid this from happening again? Like, I'm that human being, and I've always been like that. So I like to find a solution so that this situation doesn't repeat itself. And I think my husband's sort of the same, and so I think that works as well, because we're both just like, okay, you know, I'm not really a crier, so I think I'm more like, I just need to vent and rant and stuff. So I think communication in that sense helped us so much, because we were able to share things without being judgmental, without being biased, you know, all of those things which are really, really, really important. Now, the other thing I would say, okay, and this is something that I think is probably the most important, is not letting other people get in the way of your relationship or your marriage. So basically, you know, sometimes, yeah, we have friends who maybe not, they might not know your partner that very well, right? Now, if they don't know your partner and you're going and venting and ranting to them, they are going to judge your partner no matter what. Okay, we all do that because we care about the person that's telling us the story so much that we want to support them, we want to encourage them, we want to be loyal. So we'll start giving them the kind of advice that, you know, and that's the thing, like, I've learned, and this is definitely advice that my mom gave me for the longest time, and I never really listened, because I was like, no, I'm gonna tell my friends, because if I have like a problem with a friend or a cousin or in my marriage, I would like to discuss it with somebody, because I want to know, you know, I want to hear a third person's point of view. I'm, by the way, using this palette, which I love. It's from Natasha Denona. It's the Hyper Natural Face Palette. So if you're my skin complexion or lighter, I think this palette would work. Anyone of a darker skin complexion, I don't think that contour palette would work at all. And if you look at that blush as well, that's like crazy bright, right? Eyeshadows would work, but depends if you would want to invest in this. Like, for me, it works. As you can see, it's like fully abused. I love it, so I'm just using this to contour. If I'm honest, if you want to rant, I don't know, rant to God, rant to your husband or your wife or your partner. Like, the moment you go and rant to somebody else, first of all, they're never going to give you constructive criticism. They're never going to give you good advice. What are they going to really do? Are they going to come to your home and sit you both down and intervene and be like, right, let's sort this out. I really want to help you both. Nobody really does that. Maybe some. Definitely not any of my people. They've never done that. You know, usually nobody wants to get involved, right? Like, nobody wants to be part of the problem. So I just think I've learned that, you know, with time as well. And that really helped when we were in Malaysia for the 4 years, by not telling other people. We weren't able to really tell other people about our marriage, or the things that are going wrong in our marriage or right in our marriage, like whatever it is. Like, we've just kind of not really had the opportunity. But now I'm just like, man, I'm so glad, because, you know, whenever I have a problem with my husband, I would go straight to him, and vice versa. He'll come and tell me. So why not keep it between you and your husband, or you and your wife, or you and your partner, and discuss it amongst yourselves? I think that's really, really important. Yeah, the other thing that I would say is for a healthy marriage is having a boundary with your in-laws, okay? That is so crucial. Like, I genuinely get on with my mother-in-law really well. I really do. She's an awesome lady. And my husband gets along with my parents really well. You know, we all, touch wood, like, we really do all get on, and it's great. But, you know, it took some time, because at the beginning of our marriage, you know, whether it's my parents or whether it's my mother-in-law, like, everyone would kind of have something to say. They would be like, oh, you guys should do this, or, you know, you should do this, or you should go to this temple, or you should do da-da-da. And, you know, so they would try and get involved in how to either run the household, how to practice your religion, how to, you know, how to be happily married, according to them, which is fair, which is nice, and I respect that. But I think I was the first person to start saying, okay, that's great, but this is between me and my husband. And I would say that to my parents. If my parents would try and say something, I'm just like, I'm sorry. My husband doesn't have a problem with me. You can't have a problem with this. And I think because I taught my parents that, and my husband taught his mum that, nobody gets involved. Like, nobody says anything to us. And this is the next thing that I'm gonna say. It's probably a little bit difficult for most people to be able to do that. Because we were away for so long, we've just not been involved with family, if that makes sense. Like, we've not been able to go to any family events. We've obviously not been going to families for dinner or lunch or anything like that, right? And you won't believe it. Obviously, you know, what happens with families. There's always drama, especially if you come from a big family. There's always like some kind of drama and some kind of problems amongst the family members, right? And first of all, I come from a big family, my husband doesn't, so I know my husband was going to be overwhelmed the moment we moved back to the UK, because we have so many family members in the UK. I remember explaining that to my mum, and I'm just like, the moment we move back, don't be asking us to go to this uncle's house or that aunt's house, or go here for lunch, or go there for dinner, or whatever. When we were newly married and we came to London to like visit, we did that out of respect, because so many people came to our wedding. So we went to everybody's house and we had lunch or dinner or tea or coffee or whatever, and we showed you know, our respect, or paid our respect, and that was it. After that, I said to my mum, we've done what was expected of us. Now, if there is genuinely a family that we get on so well, and we want to spend time with them, we want to go to their house, great, but we're not going to do that for the sake of doing that. Like, you know, and that was really hard for my parents initially, but because they would just be like, oh, but then it's this aunt's cousin's, second cousin's daughter's 18th birthday, aren't you gonna come? And for me, it's just like, you know, I'm not really close to them, and if I come, then the chances of something being said, or, you know, I just didn't want my husband around that. I'm not saying that my family's like that, I'm just saying that the chances, you know, and I didn't want to put myself in that situation. I didn't want to put my husband in that situation. So I said to my mum, listen, unless it's a really big family wedding, we won't be coming to anything, and you need to respect that. I mean, the great excuse I had was I do bridal makeup anyway. I'm rarely free on a weekend anyway. So my parents were always able to say, oh, Vithya has a wedding, you know, Vithya has a bridal job, so she won't be able to come anyway. So that helped us to not have problems with anyone, because, you know, people will get offended, right? But I'm not saying this in a way where I'm like, oh, you should cut family out. Not at all. Oh my god, I love my family, and I love so many of my uncles and aunts, and I love my cousins. I'm super close to my cousins as well. All of that is fine. I'm just saying that if you want to have a healthy marriage, you need to pick and choose where you're taking your partner to. Because you might be okay with your family, and you might be okay with their random snidey comments or body shaming or whatever random stuff that they say, and you're so immune to it because you've grown up around it, you know, or even just like their jokes, you know, and maybe their jokes might be a little bit different. You know, I wouldn't get offended, and even if they say, oh, you know, you've put on a bit of weight or whatever, like I don't get offended about it, because I know my family members so well that I know that it doesn't come from a bad place. I know that. But I remember once when somebody said something, in front of my husband about my weight. I remember my husband was just like, he just looked at me. And then when we went home later, he was like, oh my God, like they said this. Or so this is what I mean. So you ideally should pick and choose who you're gonna be surrounded with, because that can impact your relationship. Like imagine if my husband took such offense to something and then on the drive back home, we're arguing about it. And it's not worth it, because we're not really arguing because we have a problem. We're arguing because we're arguing over family members or somebody else, or something somebody else said, or something someone else did. And it doesn't even have anything to do with me or him. Does that make sense? So I think these kind of arguments are so unnecessary, so toxic, and so unhealthy. So I do feel like it's best never to involve family, never to mix too much with family as well, and just to kind of, yeah, stay in your bubble and pick and choose if both of you are in the mood. Like sometimes, you know, there have been events that I've wanted to go to, and I would ask my husband, I'm like, do you want to come? And, you know, sometimes he's like, yeah, absolutely, let's go. But sometimes he's like, not really. And I wanted to teach my mum that just because I'm married doesn't mean that I can't attend family events without him. No, that family has been my family since I was a baby, okay? Like since I was born. So genetically, I can be there. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that if I turn up somewhere, people are gonna think there are problems between my husband and I. I'm trying to teach my family that. So I've been like, yeah, I'll come, you know, and naturally people are gonna be like, oh, where's your husband? How come he didn't come? And you know, you find an excuse, right? But I don't get offended. Like I won't like not go to something, or vice versa. Like sometimes my husband will ask me, you know, especially when we were living in Malaysia, like, you know, do you want to come? But because I love big families and I come from big families, I would say yes to everything. I'll be like, oh my God, I want to come. Who's this new aunt? Who's this uncle? Like, I want to come. I want to eat the food that they're going to cook, and I want to eat, you know, have tea and biscuits and whatnot. I'm sad like that. But now in London, I've just not had the time to really mingle with so much family because of working every Saturday and Sunday. But I've also at the same time realized that that's been very healthy for us, because we've just been again in our own bubble. Right, so I've done lash curling, filled in my brows, and I think this looks really cute and decent and still really natural. And now a bold lip, okay? The other day, I've had this for the longest time. This was sent to me in a PR package. It's the color Night Moves. It's their Power Matte lipsticks and Night Moves. So it's kind of like a deep reddish berry. I don't know if it's gonna show up in the camera with the ring light, but can you see? It's like, almost looks maroon, but because it has that kind of pinky bluey undertone, don't you think it just immediately lifted my complexion? Like, this is really nice. I do think this is more of an autumn winter color though. It's not really a summer color, but if you're somebody who generally wears a lot of darker colors all year round, I think this is a nice color. And I'm just gonna pair it with burgundy lip liner. You could do a darker lip liner. Okay, so now that I got the heavy stuff out of the way, the other things that I think spending time together a lot. Okay, he's crazy busy and I'm crazy busy, and we both have crazy schedules, and sometimes we see each other in the house, but we don't go to bed together because I have to go to bed at like 6 p.m. He then comes in later or whatever. Like we don't get to actually spend quality time together. So we make it a thing to go on date nights, to watch a movie together, to, I don't know, like spend 15 minutes, you know, sometimes we go for long walks, you know, where we can just talk. We leave our phones behind and then we just talk about anything. You know, there might not be anything in particular to talk about, but I love that my husband does this. He literally, on a daily basis, he'll be like, how are you doing? Like, how are you feeling? Like, how's your mental health? And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Like, I don't come from that world, okay? And it's so beautiful when he asks me that. And when he does, I feel encouraged to be like, you know what, actually no, I had a really bad day, or not because something particularly happened, but I've just been feeling down, or I don't know, I had a nightmare, or I'm worried about this, or I'm stressed about this. Like, it could be anything. And so I love that we do that. And then after I talk, obviously I ask him the same question, and then we talk about it, and then, you know, we kind of see if we can find a solution, we can figure something out. But this is like a daily thing. Another thing is we always kiss each other goodnight, and we say I love you before we go to sleep, and then we do morning hugs. It's like, my husband, oh my god, he can't live without hugging me 3-4 times a day. There is research and evidence to say that if you get yourself a nice 20-second hug, oh my god, it's like the best therapy ever. So just physical contact, I think it's just so nice just to get a nice solid hug. Okay, so I think hugs, you know, kisses, and just affirmations, like saying nice things to each other, like, oh, you know, your hair looks really good today, or like, you know, my husband will be like, you know, I don't know, after just 1 week of me going gym or something, he'll just be like, you look really good, like I can see the difference. And those are just really encouraging things, and I think it's really important, rather than looking at your husband and being like, you know, I think even if you're irritated with him, even if he annoys the crap out of you sometimes, I think it's so important to tell each other really nice things and to compliment each other a lot as well. That has always worked for us as well. And a big massive rule we have in the house is, if we ever have an argument, and I know for some of you, you might feel like, I've seen very famous life coaches actually say that having a lot of arguments in your marriage is healthy. I personally disagree. I feel like if you're constantly fighting and constantly arguing, something's not right. And that it shouldn't be like that. Maybe because my husband and I, we don't like confrontation, and we don't particularly, it's not that we don't like confrontation, we do, but like, as in, we do want to talk about something if there's a problem, but we hate arguing, and we hate feeling negative, and we hate going to bed feeling that way. So our #1 rule from the beginning was, no matter how much we are upset with each other, we are never sleeping in another bed. We don't sleep in separate beds. We sleep in the same bed, and we go to bed together, and we wake up together. That's like an absolute 100% rule. And you know what? Till today, we've stuck to that. And yeah, but again, like, I think in the 7 years, honestly, in the 7 years, I think I've argued with my husband a handful of times, and I don't even remember them, but they were definitely bigger fights, because we don't do like bickering or petty fights and stuff. We both just don't have the time for it, if I'm honest. Maybe it's different if you have a bigger family, if you have kids, and then there's like more reasons to kind of be upset, or I don't know. I have no idea. I can't compare, of course. I don't have kids. We don't have pets either. It's just my husband and I. So we've learned in the 7 years to really get on with each other, and to really, you know, respect each other, give each other the space, and, you know, all of those things I think is really important. Lastly, I guess finances, financial situation is also really important in a marriage and healthy marriage, to kind of establish right at the beginning of the relationship how you're going to do things. You know, and nowadays in so many marriages, the women are breadwinners and not the men, and that works for the men, or vice versa. Maybe the women are just looking after the house, not just, sorry, the women are looking after the household and the children, and the husband is the only one that goes to work. If that's the case, there needs to be some kind of thing where you sit together and talk about it. Talk about things like, how much are we spending for the house? How much are we spending for this marriage or the kids? Or, you know, what are the allowances like? Because does it mean that the wife that looks after the kids and the household never gets to buy anything fancy or nice? Or does she just have to wait for a special occasion? Blah, blah, blah. Obviously, I've learned to be financially independent because my mum's always been like that. My mum, both my mum and my dad, like, from when I've known, from when I remember, they both have worked separately, earned their own money. My dad was always, as an example, my dad was always responsible for all the bills, the grocery, all of that. And my mum was responsible for saving. And she's a very good saver, okay? My mom does not spend, she doesn't buy unnecessary things, she saves. And that's how they were able to buy properties. And, you know, now they travel 6-7 times a year. They go to like, they've just been to like Australia, and they do so many amazing things now that they're in their late 60s. And that's because they've had a structure throughout their marriage that worked for them. And that's kind of what my husband and I do. Like, we, however, go 50-50 on everything in terms of like bills, mortgage, grocery, like all the household stuff, the car and everything. We split everything 50-50. And then whatever my husband earns himself and whatever I earn outside, like, you know, we go 50-50, and the rest of the money, we can do whatever we want. And we do save as well. But again, because we don't have kids, or because we know it's just going to be the two of us and it's just the one house, like, our focus is more pension and retirement plans. That's our future. That's what we need to save towards, if that makes sense. But other than that, you know, sometimes my husband will be like, you know what, you've worked really, really hard, you deserve that designer bag, go buy it, you know. So we don't ask each other if we're allowed to buy something. We share, like, we talk to each other out of respect. I'll be like, you know, I really want to go and get this bag, or I really want to go and get this, or I really want to go on a girls trip. And it will be the same way. My husband will be like, you know what, I really want to get this. And I'm just like, okay. But sometimes equally we would be like, but do you really think we should spend money on that? Because we've just done this and we need money for this. So I think talking about finances, planning your finances and planning something for the future in terms of like, are you saving towards something? Do you want to buy another property? Do you want to buy your first property together? There are so many things that you need to sit down and talk as well. So I think finances are really, really important. And also what works for you both. Don't discuss your finances ever with other people, with other couples, because it varies and it's different for different families, right? Like, for me, it's really, really important that as a female, you should be financially independent, because God forbid if something happens and you guys split up or anything, you want to be in a position where you can support yourself and you don't stay in the marriage purely because you're financially dependent on somebody, if that makes sense. But again, I'm not saying this to offend anybody or upset anyone. Like, you know, there are still things that you can do, even if you're sitting at home.